A Detective Garda once told me, always remember your ABCs. Assume nothing, believe nobody, and check everything. With that in mind, a very fascinating event happened at the Paris Olympics. One female boxer quit a fight 40 seconds into a fight with another female boxer. Why? According to the boxer that quit, the punches she received were too powerful and she became concerned for her own safety. An unusual but not a totally irrational event. But no one was prepared for the cataclysmic explosion that was the media storm after the event. Somehow or another, a narrative got going that the Olympics had allowed a biological man to step into a ring and fight an unsuspecting woman. Neither boxer identified as transgender, and both fighters claimed to have lived their entire lives as women, but yet hundreds of public figures, media outlets and sportspersons were crying, "Scam! Sham! Charlatan!" Even a brief Google search would have generated no articles relating to a gender transition by either of the fighters. So what in the Rhine was going on? To understand these events, one has to take a step back and take in a wider view. We currently live in a very fundunkled world. The average citizen is now educated enough to realise that all that glitters is not gold. They've watched the organisations that their parents held above reproach show their dirty underbelly. They watched their governments snatch money from its own citizens' pockets and hand it over to the financial institutions after those same institutions gambled away people's futures in the 2008 financial crash. They watched the global body on health call a non-vaccine a vaccine and then instruct governments around the world to force the mass injections of their people, and all the while lining the pockets of those who were far removed from any of the consequences. And then they watched their governments, medical institutions and health professionals suddenly claim there is no such thing as biological facts. Men can be women and women can be men, and a child is wiser than its mother in knowing the difference. That really appeared to have been the final straw for the everyday folk who hadn't the words nor the public reach to call a halt on the madness. But they now knew for sure that the lunatics had taken over the asylum. Governments, prestigious organisations and international committees could now not be trusted to tell information that was honest, accurate and truth-orientated. And now we return to this little boxing match taking place at the Paris Olympics 2024. The story of a man fighting a woman took off at a speed that transcends the imagination. Within hours, thousands of articles, blogs and social media posts all purported the same message. A scandal has occurred. The Olympics Committee has allowed a leopard to change his spots, and now a man has viciously beaten a woman on live television. One could imagine that even 5 years ago, a headline like that could be dismissed out of hand as untrue clickbait. The assumption that an organisation as elite and respected as the Olympics could have allowed the sanctity of sport to be defiled in such a way would have been unfathomable. But in today's world, the dead wood of the forest floor was prime for burning. It needed little more than a warm breath to combust, and the social media inferno that ensued was ferocious and comprehensive. But people were misguided. The idiom of assuming was proved true. It really does make an ass out of you and me. The boxer in question wasn't a victim of New Age progressivism. Instead, she was a female with a very specific and peculiar condition relating to the expression of her sexual characteristics, due to a combination of factors involving genes, hormones and other aspects of biology that we are, as of yet, ignorant. If a person has a medical condition that gives them a physical advantage over someone without the condition, should they be allowed to compete at acts of physicality? A gut response would indicate no, but the ups and downs of such a decision would be best suited to another video. The point this video attempts to make is not so much about the event as much as it is about the response to the event. Without a shred of proof, millions of people came to believe that the International Olympics Committee had either knowingly or lackadaisically permitted a hormone-adjusted man to fight an unsuspecting woman, and there was only one reason why this happened. Public trust in major organisations has been utterly shattered by the lies being told about gender. After the 2008 financial crash, people were still willing to keep their savings in a bank. After political corruption scandals, people are still happy to vote in elections. Even after the COVID crisis, people are still happy to go in and receive vaccines. But this gender ideology crisis has done a different type of damage. It has shown that professional groups are willing to ignore basic, absolute facts of reality in favour of pandering to minority groups, and this has wreaked untold damage to the credibility of all major organisations, even those that are supposed to be about uniting civilizations under a common appreciation for what the human body can do. The fact that so many people were willing to accept without hesitation that an organisation dedicated to sports was prepared to sacrifice the health and life of one of its own competitors at the altar of insanity is a dark testimony to the devastation gender ideology has had on our world. But somewhere squeezed between all this confusion there exists a little positive. People can smell the sewage in the seawater. They know that there are only two genders, and they know that it's wrong to try and pit them against each other in combat, no matter what mental delusions affects either parties. The public outcry that was heard after this fight has showed that courage and truth exist and people are willing to prove it. And that is a comforting thought.